I'd like to call the meeting to order. Can we have the roll call, please?
Mr. Carano.
Here.
Mr. Kerrigan. Ms. Cooney. Mr. Curtis. Mr. DeVold.
Here.
Mr. Dortch.
Here.
Mr. Finland.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Good morning.
Mr. Hawkins.
Here.
Mr. Humke. Mr. Trenton.
Here.
Ms. Weber. Ms. Zadra.
Thank you. Ms. Cooney, would you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda?
Move to approve.
Approval of agendas.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Public comment? We got any public comment cards? Seeing none. Review and approval of the minutes from April 28th.
Move to approve.
Got a motion and a second. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Chairman Dortch. I'll keep my remarks brief, as I know we want to get to the bulk of the of our agenda today. Things over this last month, things are good, and we're really pleased. It's it just seems like since February we were dealing with transitions in the executive staff, the challenges with Choir Festival, the layoffs, the preparation of the budget, the marketing plan, and for the first time now that we've hit in April, I think we've really settled in and got things moving ahead. For at least a short while, we were fully staffed in our convention sales. We do have one change that we're making in Washington, D.C. as we speak, but for the most part, we've got all of our market segments covered. John will be out this next week at a group of meeting planners, of lady meeting planners in Florida. Robin Nichols and myself will actually be in D.C. at a conference 2 weeks from now. I feel like we're actually out selling and moving ahead on the convention side and executing our plan. On the marketing side, Jennifer is out actively pushing the Far From Expected campaign to our hotel stakeholders, moving ahead with it for this next year. As well as we're meetings yesterday, specifically directed at our couple of new campaigns that we're working on, trying to get our community a little more involved and appreciative and recognizing what we're doing here, as well as our change of direction when it comes to special events. How as opposed to just the granting process, we're looking more to be more of an active partner or sponsor. Take advantage of our sponsorship, if you will, with our special events. So we're very encouraged. We've got before you today our budget that we will talk about just briefly or to an extent you'd like, as well as the marketing plan. It's our both marketing plan and our budget. We intend to make just a short presentation. We've made presentations, as most of you are aware, over the last 2 months. At finance committees, at marketing and sales committees, at the board meeting. Certainly available to answer any questions or concerns you may have. But we're very encouraged. People are happy. We're moving ahead. We had a decent month in sales. Got a lot of good leads out. We have picked up a couple, Robin and Shelley Fine in particular, and Audrey, I should say, all three, and actually Connie Williams just recently came. We're seeing some good opportunities, so we're very encouraged. And with that, be happy to entertain any questions, or if not, that would conclude our president's report.
Any questions? Thanks, Joe. Items for board consent. Marketing committee, Mr.
Excuse
Cronin.
me, Mr. Dortch. I'm sorry, I had one other thing.
You're already done.
Well, this is not about me. I talked about our other departments, but I should mention Brian and our staff with the finance department. Once again, they received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from our budget from last year. This comes from the Government Finance Officers Association. We have been fortunate enough to be the recipient of that for the last that long for a number of years, but it's always encouraging, and thought it's oftentimes we don't recognize those people like Brian and our finance staff that work so diligently behind the scenes, but they certainly do a nice job for us. I thought we'd recognize them as well.
Great, congratulations. Mr. Carano.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be speaking to items 7, C, D, E, and F on the agenda, and maybe a little bit more. I'll try to contain myself here. We did have a marketing committee meeting dated May 9th, which we had a quorum, and we number one, item C speaks to convention sales and lost annual business report. In your we had a graph there that speaks and a definition of terms in regards to why the lost business, what the lost business really means. The largest portion of that graph was thought to be kind of vague and undefined. So I think John, going forward, is going to try to jump into really understand why we're losing business in Reno. When you look at the numbers, the actual numbers, they speak to half a year, and as they speak to half a year, they're also going to be down because our leads year to date are down. So having the leads being down, I think a lot of that will also speak to you know, with John and John's staff and getting a better professional staff that I don't believe we've had out here for a number of years, and good leadership. I think John's in the right direction in regards to developing a better loss report update, and then also with the full staff increasing the leads. With item D, the sales report, convention sales report, convention sales for hotels was actually, I believe, John, you said was kind of on a 2 or 3 month run in regards to numbers actually doing better than they have been in the past, even though they're substantially down from goals. Again, I think when we look at marketing plan and we look at everything that we're trying to do out here, the first thing I think is I don't think you could do anything at all unless you have a dedicated professional staff that's fully developed and has a full complement. We have not had a full staff out here working full speed for a year and a half now, at least, and then that staff itself had major holes in it. So I think with John and the convention sales marketing team keeping a strict whip over John, making sure he's doing the great job that he's going to do for us, and the entire community come together. It's a community effort. So I myself had a chance to meet some of the out-of-town salespeople this last week, and I'm optimistically very, very pleased with them and look forward to working with them. And Joe just said that we now have one vacant spot in D.C., and I know John will go out there and find a great person to fill that position. Okay, so again, the convention sales for the month of March, even though they're not goal, they're creeping up in there, and clearly by June 30 of this year, which we'll receive that report in August, I guess, year-end numbers will be way down compared to where they should have been. But again, we have not had a sales staff. Going forward for 2011-12, we've actually increased our convention sales numbers a little bit over last year's goal, which will be a dramatic increase over this year's production. You know, so we're going to go ahead and put the fire to John and his staff's shoes, but with a professional staff in this community working together, you know, we should at least have an opportunity and have a fighting chance of getting those numbers. Anything to add, John?
Thank you, Mr. Carano. I'm real excited about the staff. We got some great folks, Like you said, with the collaborative effort with our hotels, we will do really well. The folks I'm bringing in, the new hires, they really get it, and I'm real excited about our future here. The DC position is something that we need to go get that same level of caliber and have that production that we expect out of that market. We're committed to hiring the right person. We already did that. So we're looking to get the right person in there, and our next year's gonna be a great year. Looking forward to it.
Just go back on John. John's background, and I try to remember it myself, but his background is managing sales teams and developing goals and keeping salespeople on target in regards to producing, and if they're not, he gets them back on target, and that's what he's a professional at. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what John and his team is going to be able to do in the year 2011-12. So and I'll keep on saying that so that John knows we got our eyes on him. And John, I can say this to him, the previous person in that position, we might come to fisticuffs, but I think John is a guy who really is going to put a great team together here. The next report we have was the tourism sales report for March, and the numbers there are actually pretty good in regards to being up in production over goal, and with the amount of snow we had and the amount of weather we had in the month of March is pretty good. We made the comment there that tourism numbers are probably up largely because of bowlers are coming around the bowling block and traveling on the channels of the OTA, and so the OTA numbers are actually up. We have, again, the tourism department initially right now is moved into the convention sales department, and we're talking about making some changes there. But most of those tourism numbers, again, are reporting numbers through the OTAs, as opposed to just driving business. So John and the sales team will have some changes there coming forth to make sure we're deploying people in the right direction. Okay. Anything there you would like to talk about? Marketing report. Let's see. Our marketing, our unique visitation to the website continues to grow. Welcome, Mr. Humpke. So the visitation to the website continues growing. Is still substantially up over last year and up over goal this year. We still want to develop a better referral program and a conversion program into room nights, and so I know that Jennifer is going to continue working on that. Social media, if you're not doing that, you're really missing a lot of the boat. You could have one of these things, and as we have a meeting, you could have 20 meetings in one meeting, and not get anything accomplished. But at any rate, Facebook and Twitter are both up substantially, and we're still putting out a bunch of stuff out there to blog. Jennifer, anything to add?
I was just going to add that we successfully filled the position of our social media PR coordinator, and graduate from University of San Diego and a resident of Reno, actually, moving back home, and she'll start on May 31st. And has done some pretty incredible internships with Scripps and another company down in the Bay Area, in Southern California, doing their social media. So I think she's a good one to speak to our demo market for that, our target market for that. So it's all going well.
All right. Well, thank you. Any questions of Jennifer? All right. And then a lot of our meeting May 9th was over the marketing plan and goals and everything there, and so we went through that. But I think the board, as a board, we've been through that 2 or 3 times, I think, in regards to what we're doing there. And for me, again, our marketing budget, I think, is going to be down someplace around $300,000 this year to last year. We cut it someplace around $300,000. And as we have, you know, you have less dollars, so we have to do more with less dollars. You know, where we, number one, the biggest thing is making sure we have the right people in the right positions to go out and do the job. And I think, by all intents and purposes, we're getting there in the sales and marketing areas. And then secondly, there's thought of trying to put a campaign together that actually is not meant to cost them any money, but actually put a campaign together that would bring the community together in regards to something similar to what Rose Glenn did, Valerie Rose did a few years ago with the airport, and it was a campaign called "We Love This Place." And if we could just get the community to, again, realize that we're in the hospitality industry throughout the community and get the entire community to participate somehow, some way, may not cost a whole bunch of dollars, but might put a little ring around the place that would, again, welcome our guests and invite them back. So with that, Mr. Chairman, that's items 7C, D, and F. If there's any questions, if not, I'd ask for a motion for approval and acceptance of the.
Any questions?
Move to approve?
Got a motion, do we have a second? Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Mr. DeVold.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under tab G is the report for March 2011, report of operations and transient lodging statistics. March, we saw room tax revenues experience an 8.6% increase from the budget, so we've got about $126,000 in additional tax revenue for the RSCVA. Facility margins were above budget by about $20,000, primarily due to no shows in the event center and decreased revenues at the Livestock Event Center. Other income was marginally below budget. Year-to-date revenues are about $255,000 above budget. Good news there. And year-to-date room tax revenues are $606,000 above budget. So doing nicely there compared to the budget. Year-to-date margins improved from the budget by about $1.2 million, and primarily due to rescheduling some of the bowling site fees that we had, decreased payroll, promotional and advertising expenses not yet materializing, some capital expenditures that we haven't yet seen materialize, and then some improved margins at the convention center. Year-to-date cash occupied rooms are about 4,000 above budget. Again, good news. Cash occupancy is still only 35%, but it's still above our projected budget. Average cash rates, $72.58, and again, $1.56 above budget. TAP reports in the back, right before that little green tab there, and you can see that we're behind pace in several areas in that report, in room nights and in events. So again, you know, lots of pressure on John, and you know, I continue to beat that drum. So one thing I kind of wanted to go through is in your in tab G, there's a little green sheet there, and if you could maybe flip to that, Guy, this might give you a really good understanding of where we actually are on a bunch of different fronts here, and maybe a little bit easier to read. And thank you, Brian, and your staff for putting this together. On that first one is for the month of March, our revenue in excess of expenses was about $482,000. That was about $141,000 under our projected budget. However, you can see compared to the prior year, we're doing pretty well. On the next page is probably a little bit more important. The 9 months ending March 2011, you can see our revenues in excess of expenses is negative. It's a $1.6 million loss, but if you go back out onto the right-hand side and look at the outlook for The annual side of things, we're at about $26,000 projected loss, and that loss was projected to be at about $1.9 million. So I think we've made some nice moves there, and that kind of gives you a better overall feel for where we were. So obviously, we didn't have to use any of the dollars that were contemplated with Washoe County at the time to try and balance our budget. So that was really, really good news. And then right behind that, you'll see the individual profit and loss centers for the convention center and the bowling stadium and the livestock event center and the event center and so forward. I won't go into each one of the months, but you can see the departmental profit or loss depending on each one of those individual components of the budget. So I think this is a little bit easier to read and hopefully a little bit easier to understand in a quick view. But I think I gave you the 5,000 foot level on the outlook budget. It looks like we're going to miss it by about $26,000 of balancing the budget, which is phenomenal news, obviously.
Can I ask a quick question? Thank you for this new format, by the way. I really like it. It's more of what I'm used to looking at, so I appreciate that. Brian, on page 17, you have grants. That's one thing going through all these budgets, I don't recall what exactly that's for. Is that for Pioneer Center?
The grants are for Pioneer, and the money that flows back to Incline Village, half the money that's collected up there goes back to that group.
Because it's different than special projects, is what made me wonder. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, good question. I think I asked that at the Finance Committee meeting too, because I hadn't noticed that before, and yeah, that's maybe a hitcher. Then under tab H, you can see what activity that we've hit for the Reno Sparks Convention Center. Obviously, it was fairly busy in March with the Rocky Mountain Elk Festival and some of the other items. So you can kind of see in each one of the following tabs, I, J, K, and L, what happened in each one of those facilities. And I'm sure everybody has studied this diligently. So that's my report, Mr. Chairman. And unless there's any other questions, I'd move to approve consent agenda items G through L.
Got a motion, do we have a second? Got a motion and a second. Any questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now the fun part. Item M. Ryan, I think you're running this one, or is Joe?
Mr. Chairman, if it's okay, I'd like to do just a brief overview. Certainly, once again, available to answer any questions. And I guess, first off, maybe Brett, if we could call on you. We're actually approving a budget resolution, which will need to be signed by all the board members today. Is that correct?
Correct. As soon as it's approved, we will pass the resolution around. And then, Mr. Chair, if you could open up the public hearing on this right now and call for any public comment.
Okay, I'll open the public hearing on item M and ask if there's anybody in the public that wants to speak on this item. Seeing none. Mr. Kelly?
Okay, thank you. What you have before you is our consolidated summary for this year's budget. We've also provided 4 years' history. As you can see, as we're looking at controlling expenses, we're going into next year with what we think will be, for the most part, pretty much a flat as far as room tax collections for this year. As you look, we're budgeting both as far as what our outlook, just a little bit below this next year, what we will receive or what we're projecting to receive this year. You'll notice that there's a drop in revenue at the convention center, which is primarily driven by the fact that Safari Club will not be at the center this next year, as well as Rocky Mountain Elk, both groups that generate a substantial amount of revenue. National Bowling Stadium, you'll see is the drop in revenue there is driven by the fact that we'll be hosting the Lady Bowlers this next year, as opposed to the Open Championships. The Open Championships are about twice the size of the Ladies Championships. All of our other areas of revenue, we've increased slightly in certain areas, hoping for not quite the winner that we had this year as far as Wild Creek Golf Course, and then slight increases at both the Livestock Event Center and Reno Event Center. The one little anomaly I will point out on the revenue side from convention sales, we are hosting 2 large third-party meeting planning groups next year, Helms Briscoe and Experience. That revenue is driven by the fact some of our partner properties are co-hosting events with us. And so if we pay for a reception and maybe the Silver Legacy is co-hosting it with us, they'll be reimbursing us for costs. So those additional costs or additional revenue line there is actually pretty much just a wash. We are going to see an increase this next year in our debt service payment, which I believe we discussed at length over the last couple of months. It is budgeted, and we're prepared to obviously incur that. On the expense side, payroll and related is down $1 million. Quite honestly, that is the result of the layoffs that we unfortunately had to do last March, as well as 12 furlough days for all full-time employees. All full-time employees will be required to take 1 day a month this next year. And that's the largest part of our savings. If you'll notice, that is across the board with one exception. And we'll discuss that a little bit now and a little bit greater in the marketing discussion. We made no cuts and are fully staffed in the convention sales department. We've made it quite plain or quite clear, I think, from the get-go. As part of our plan is to focus on convention and group sales. I'm going to jump right into supplies and services and travel and entertainment. You'll notice that the only increases that you're going to see are all directed to convention sales. Convention sales is fully staffed. We have fully funded programs, and we have increased their travel and entertainment budget to be out on the road making sales calls. Unfortunately, within the expense side, we did have to cut about a little over $300,000 in the marketing department. The bulk of the cuts there are directly related to the Far From Expected campaign. We are optimistic or cautiously optimistic, as I mentioned in my report. Jennifer is out soliciting the involvement of our hotel stakeholders at a level of about, I believe, $125,000 per property. If we are successful in meeting one of her primary goals, then we'll actually be able to spend more money in the Bay Area in spite of the fact that we, the RSCBA, are cutting our participation level. But we'll actually spend more money next year as part of that campaign, a little over $100,000 more, or right at about $100,000 more. Most of the other cuts that you'll see, primarily supplies and services at the convention center, is all driven by the tent. We don't have to rent the tent and the utilities that go along with that. It's a substantial savings. And in convention sales, the primary, just talking about all the increases in convention sales, the drop of $112,000 there is all related to, or the majority of it is related to CEO search or Searchwide, the group that's been working with us to help us fill positions. We're not planning on we're not budgeting to utilize their services. As we've talked about, we've utilized their services, they're funded, and the drop in expense from convention sales there is all directly related to that. And I mentioned the travel and entertainment being up at convention sales. Promotion and advertising, we're, pretty much it's unfortunately, it's pretty much flat to last year with the exception of Jennifer's department, which we talked about is actually closer to almost to $400,000 instead of over $300,000. Special projects, The 430,000 reduction there is all directly related to our site fee payment schedule to USBC. Very little capital in this next year's budget. The capital that we are spending will be out at the Reno Sparks Convention Center. We'll be utilizing funds that were left over from the 2002 bond proceeds. In those is a $250,000 roofing project and an upgrade to our elevator to bring it into compliance. I know as you mentioned, Mr. Dortch, Mr. DeVoe, we have talked about this budget rather extensively. Those are the highlights. I'm more than happy to discuss any departments, any of the facilities, any of our programs. Bob Thomas is here from the stadium. John's here from livestock, and of course Jennifer and the rest of us are here, and certainly available to discuss any questions or concerns or thoughts you may have.
Any questions? Discussion? Motion? Yep.
Motion
Got a
to
motion
approve.
to approve. Do we have a second? Got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Yeah, good job.
Well, thank you. Once again, we talked about the nice job that Brian and his staff does. Took a lot of cooperation from all the departments, but they are really an asset. And in all fairness, with the depth of experience that we have in our finance department, it's really an asset to our facilities and all departments when we're preparing the budget and tracking revenue and expenses. To the plan.
Mr. Chairman.
And at this time, I guess Charlotte will pass around the resolution for your signature, please.
I kind of want to piggyback on Joe's comments, you know, with the staffing reductions that we've done and everything that we've asked Brian and his department to do. I mean, to continue to produce something of this quality is just phenomenal. And Brian, just, you know, thank you. I know we've been at it for 4 years here, and you know, I just really appreciate your professionalism and the job that you and your staff do on this budget. It's phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to item N, the marketing and sales plan. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you again, Chairman Dortch. We're once again available to answer all your questions. You'll see on the slides. First slide, of course, is our mission statement, and quite simply, it's to put heads in beds. We can talk about our mission statement, vision statements, brand statements, but everything that we do through this marketing plan is intended to drive overnight visitation to Washoe County. This last year, we were fortunate enough to see a slight uptick. Can you go to the next? Go ahead. One. In our visitor counts, that's a good point. 1.2% increase. However, as you can tell, we've been in a steady decline since 2002. Looking to change that trend this next year. One thing I will bring up that's not directly related necessarily to visitor counts, but for the first time since 2007, the marketing department is actually doing a visitor study. So we'll have a visitor study available first part of, I think we'll get a 6-month update, sometime after July, maybe the first part of August. We'll be able just to see a little bit how what the trends are, but we will have a visitor update for this year. For the first time. Contained within this plan is obviously our goals for this next year and some of our strategies to attain those goals. We have focused, and I guess what I'd like to talk about first is our convention and group sales. We have focused on that since the day one. We have the goals that are set forth in this year's plan are extremely aggressive. In particular, you know, the room night goal of 285.6. However, what's more important, at least the way from our perspective, is the fact that we are looking at our citywide and our mid-size citywide or what we call them. In this next year, we are looking to book, 8 citywides, John? Is that what we're looking at? 6. Excuse me, 6 citywides and then a group of 8 or 10 of our mid-size citywides, citywide being those that use 2,000 room nights, and then our the mid-size citywides are a group using 850 on, those are peak nights, and both using our convention center. We've also, I think, one of the things that's important to note within John's plan is we're changing a couple of our metrics. No longer are we actually, we're actually looking now at conversions instead of calls. I think John's focus within the group side is, it doesn't matter if you make 100 calls, if you make 10 of the right calls, that's far greater than 100 calls. And what we're looking at are quality calls that we can convert into room nights. Looking to impact that conversion rate from about 15% to 21%. Yes.
And Joe, those citywides are actually be citywides that are booked as opposed to experienced?
Absolutely. Prior plans actually had hosted. Was hosted citywides in a year were part of the goal. And that hasn't got us where we are. We have, and without going through the whole list, we have taken a lot of, we booked a lot of our long-term groups, in particular Northern California volleyball and Jam On It basketball, out 5-6 years. And obviously that runs your room night production up, but it's not necessarily helping us where we are, or where we need to be, I should say. We need to focus on booking within the year citywide business as well as that mid-sized business.
Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, John, one of the things, I'm glad to see you're focusing on conversion, and one of the things I was kind of curious about is, are you getting ready to go out to the individual stakeholders in the properties and you know, talking to Beth or you know, the El Dorado, the Silver Legacy, you know, Tim, what nights do you have available? What's in your sweet spot? You know, so that, you know, you're basically trying to sell them oranges. You know, if they want apples, you're trying to sell them oranges, you're going to have a low conversion percentage. So what I'm kind of wondering is do you have like a set meeting schedule with the stakeholders so that you can kind of hear what dates that they have available, and you know, so that we're kind of working in concert with those folks. But you know, I'm really excited. I've always kind of had a hard time with 21 or 20% conversion percentage. You know, just, you know, being in the sales business, you know, you're you know, relating it to baseball, you know, gosh, you bat .210, you're back in the minors or out of the business. So, you know, I'd love to see, is there ways that we can improve that even better than 21%? So.
We do have regular scheduled meetings about every other month with the directors of sales. My sales folks are every day talking to the property salespeople about the leads that we submit and how do they fit within the needs of the hotel. What are we doing to try to go get that business? That's an ongoing conversation. I have frequent one-on-ones with the directors of sales that we've gone over this marketing plan with them, got their approval or support, I should say. The thing that I'm real excited about and what's going to help us with our conversion is the focus. We haven't had a really strong understanding of our database, and our database hasn't been really kept up well. So we're going through a pretty extensive cleansing process, identification process. You look at our metrics, they're all designed against a focused base of accounts. Our citywide growth needs to happen, our mid-sized growth needs to happen. You look at our deployment, we've got dedicated folks against citywides, dedicated folks against small meetings, sports, things that are really kind of going to improve the performance of the destination. To Joe's earlier point, our historical production has been about 50% of our historical production has been through repeat annual events, not necessarily citywides, but repeat annuals. Our goal achievement next year most likely is going to need to come from about 65% of new business. We want to retain those accounts that we have. That's very important. They're our bread and butter. but we won't see that base of production coming this year because they're already booked out. The beauty about having this type of growth from new business, it gives us a better base to build even more into the future on top of our legacy accounts, if you will. But yes, we have, we're very committed to understanding what's good for our partners and how we can go get that business.
The strategies John just discussed, where we have our sales staff deployed from the citywide to the sports market through the different regions, and then also the small market person. There is an increased focus on impacting short term. We all know that 12, 13, and 14, we have a lot of inventory available, and we need to impact those areas as well as our convention center.
I have a question, Joe. These are very, very aggressive goals. How realistic are these goals that we can even come close to measuring? Because to book 6 citywide events next year, right? That's going to be very difficult. So, it's one thing to throw this stuff up and say, yeah, this is great. What is the reality, actually, that this is going to happen?
Good question, Ms. Trenton. Thank you. And I think it's important that goals are a realistic stretch. I see the 10 as a realistic stretch. It's aggressive. It's not a number that we have historically shown that we can do. The most citywides that we've contracted in the last 4 years is 4. And the most mid-sized groups that we've booked in the last 4 years is 6. So the reason why I took on the challenge with these numbers is one, I'm very optimistic about just the most recent trends. I'd say in the last 2 months, we've got 4 citywides that we either had a shot at or we still do have a shot at. And some of that effort is because of the marketing presence, the sales presence that we have are getting us opportunities. Come See Fly Free actually generated a citywide opportunity. Unfortunately, they didn't select our destination, but we now have them in our sites as an opportunity to continue to go pursue. So I'm encouraged by these recent inquiries, if you will, and processes. Additionally, this redeployment in our wheelhouse right now is about 200 accounts that are identified as citywide users that have looked at our destination before. I had 8 people trying to chase 200 accounts, and in addition to all the other accounts they're managing, by taking this focus with one of our stronger salespersons and going out and trying to acquire other database of citywides, I would look to build that account base on the citywide somewhere around 400. So it's a realistic stretch. It's one that I want to take on and feel it's important that we push ourselves to go get.
Mr. Chairman? I think in regards to citywide too, it's understanding the definition of a citywide, and that's 6 citywides booked not just for next year, but they're booked for years out, right? And the definition of citywide is 2,000 rooms peak night.
2,000 and utilizing one of our convention facilities.
Yeah. So I mean, heck, I'm optimistic that I know Civil Legacy. We're talking to a couple right now. So I'm optimistic that 6. Again, it's just a matter of having a dedicated staff, keeping the eye on the ball and focusing on that, and then maybe we'll get a chance to see if we can actually do it. I'm encouraged that we've got someone actually keep an eye on the ball and focusing on, and Joe said a minute ago, the word focus.
Yeah, and John, your answer was exactly what I wanted to hear. That this is a stretch, but we're going to go out and we're going to do it, and we got plans in place to do it. So I appreciate that.
I want to echo that one, John. I'm jacked up right now. It's like that's exactly what we need in this building right now. Is attitudes exactly like that. Let's go get it done. You know what? Let's quit feeling sorry for ourselves and let's go get it done. And thank you for that, taking that on. I'm excited about it. Good for you. Way to go.
With that, I will continue. Tourism sales. We can make that real short. What the focus within tourism sales is on where can our tourism sales staff impact the tourism market, and a lot less on counting room nights generated through the online travel agencies. We've talked about the online travel agencies. There was a little article in the paper this last week. They are a 10,000-pound gorilla. How we, the RSCVA, are impacting them I think, is something that in all fairness, John is still researching and meeting with the OTAs and meeting with our staff. The focus with the tourism is that we are going to focus our efforts where we can have an impact. And we still have a very aggressive goal there for this next year as well. A lot less focus on the OTAs, a lot more focus on the group side and working the different conferences and golf and ski market.
Yeah, one thing that we want to make sure when we talk about the OTAs, and Joe used a 10,000-pound gorilla, what's important to realize is this is a distribution channel that is critical for the success of the destination. Right now, as far as the tourism sales goes, that represents about 80% of the production that is being tracked by tourism sales. I liken it to if you're Procter & Gamble and you want to sell Huggies, you want to make sure that you have the prime spot at Walmart. And if the minute that you decide that you want to try to get away from Walmart, you're really going to hurt your sales. So we need to make sure that we have the right focus and that we're doing this in the right approach and have the right folks doing that. What I'm assessing is what other opportunities there are. We know that AAA has some opportunities that we think that we can go grow. The group tour business, we're looking to go grow. The ski and golf, we want to go grow and have a better focus in those areas that we can influence. I'm trying to get a real strong understanding of what our role is in the OTAs and how we influence that. So most of that spend is at the property level, and most of that relationship is at the property level. So that's what we're refining and retooling.
Thank you. Moving on to the...
Joe, I have a question. We've obviously did some restructuring in that arena, and it talks about going out to shows. Who are the people that are going to the shows?
Representing the RSCVA?
Yes.
We have Terry and Adam. That's the other thing that we're looking at is what shows are we participating in. Historically, we did the standards, the powwows, which is very important to be at. We're going to go back to NTA. We lost our presence there for a little bit, but that National Tour Association is an area that we think there's a growth opportunity, so we're going back to that. We're redefining our public show participation. That's been a big area of focus for golf and ski, so we want to make sure that those dollars are used appropriately, but Terry and Adam are the representatives.
They were the ones going previously too, correct?
They were, and Ralph also had some presence in some of the international receptive operators. That's an area that we're scaling back on.
Thank you. The marketing department, we touched base. Of course, Jennifer's here once again to answer any questions. We have cut almost $400,000 out of our marketing department budget. Primarily, that is all far from expected campaign. Jennifer's, one of her first goals is to solicit and get the participation, hopefully, of 5 of our hotel stakeholders at $125,000 level. As we talked a little bit about earlier, that would allow us to actually spend more money next year in the Bay Area on the campaign. So she's already started those meetings, and I'm happy to report our first her first meeting was with the Nugget with Stephen and Beth, who have agreed to come on. So we're optimistic. We're off to a good start, and Jennifer has a number of meetings scheduled throughout May and in the first part of June. Once again to promote the campaign. We'll keep you abreast on the rest of the throughout the year on the success of the campaign, and assuming it has success, and we're very optimistic that it will. What we've seen so far has been good, and so we're optimistic there. The majority of Jennifer's other goals through this next year are driven, and I won't go into all of them, but the online components, the Facebook, and getting new members and people logging in and how long they stay within the website. Actually, one of them that we're very fond of is the actual the people that come online to us and actually go onto a property. All of our programs, all of your web-based, your website, your Facebook, everything that Jennifer is doing there is focused on not only the brand, but also driving room nights. Somewhere within the campaign and the branding, it all has to correlate back to room nights, and we all know that, and that is what her whole, the whole part of her plan is about. There are two areas that I touched on just briefly that I'd like to mention again. As when it comes to special events, we do want to be more active with our special events. As we've discussed, we don't want to be grant writers where we go through our special event process, groups make presentations to us, we evaluate it on a task force level, then a committee level, then a board level, and we write checks. And that's it. We want to be more involved with the special events. We all know what they mean to us as far as a participating sponsor and have a larger presence within the actual special event and be out in the public. And that also ties back into one of the other campaigns that we want to push this next year, and Glenn mentioned Valerie's prior campaign that she did with Rose Glen, the We Love This Place, and we haven't come up with the name for it, but the whole idea is we want a campaign out there like Mr. DeVoe just talked about. We're tired of talking about foreclosures and layoffs and furloughs and leading the nation in unemployment. We still have a lot of good things happening in this market, and a lot of great opportunity, a lot of good things happening, and we want to take a lead role in getting that message out in the community so that all of our community recognizes what we're doing, what opportunities are here, and what a great place we do have for convention and group business, as well as the tourism business. Jennifer's working really hard with John. They're redesigning parts of our website. Our website now is very consumer driven, and we'd like to change. We still want to keep the consumer driven portion, but we would also like to have a much greater emphasis, if you will, on the meetings and group side of our website. I don't think John or Jennifer, either one, is pleased with the way the opportunity that we're providing for the group and meetings business. So they're working on that, as well as they're also the support in creating additional collateral that supports the mission of the group and convention side. I would add one other thing, a couple of things that you will not see in this year's marketing plan that you have seen in the past. First, and we have these. First is a SWOT analysis. We do post this marketing and sales plan online, and the thought is it's not very strategic to put your weaknesses online for your competitors to see. However, we do have that SWOT analysis and work with it on a daily basis. You will also not see the advertising plan, which sometimes have been included in the past. We are very much dependent on the participation, as we discussed, of our hotel stakeholders. And as we get these hotel stakeholder properties on board with the plan, the advertising plan will be developed with their input and their cooperation. So that will be coming shortly, but it's not contained in this plan. And then also the travel plans. In the past, we have put both our group and our tourism travel plans or sales missions contained within the marketing plan. And once again, we don't think that's very strategic, although it's not that hard to figure out, but it's not that strategic to include in the plan. Actually, we did pass those out last week, I guess it was, at the Director of Sales meetings. So our Director of Sales, they do have where we have plans to attend shows and different missions this year, not only from the convention and group side, but also the tourism side. Once again, we're all here available to answer questions regarding the plan, to discuss individual goals, or any thoughts or comments you may have.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Joe. You said everything on Jennifer's plan is to drive room nights, correct? Yet in the miserable objectives, there's nothing that ties what she's doing to any room night goals. So, or conversion, we have conversion rates, John has conversion rates going from 15 to 21%. We have no conversion rates here. We're gonna try to generate more leads. And you said room nights, yet there's nothing to measure what Jennifer's doing tying to room nights.
Yes, well, she doesn't book room nights. The room nights that are booked are through our tourism and with our convention and group side. You know, the advertising on the website, the campaign that we're doing in the Bay Area, as well as her assistance and all within the within the group side. So there's no necessarily a trackable room night goal that we can apply to our marketing department.
And Mr. Chairman, and Joe, maybe Jennifer could speak to the definition of an inquiry and how that might eventually turn into a room night.
One thing we are measuring is inquiries from our website, which means that we've driven someone to our website and then they opt to go to, for example, Harrah's to book their room, or Air Races to find out more about the event. So it's using us as a vehicle to get out to the hotels. And Joe's absolutely right. We're more of the support to fill the room nights for convention sales and tourism sales.
Okay, that's more clear to me now, because when you're saying everything does books room nights, then it goes
Right.
through basically tourism, correct?
Correct. And I think in the past, the leisure traveler, I think in the past, a lot of emphasis has been put on more the aesthetic facet of let's have this fabulous campaign and let's advertise in the Bay Area. And what we wanted to really drive home in marketing this year going forward, as long as I'm here, is whatever we do, there has to be a direction for and a thought process of it's got to translate into room nights. So we really wanted to adjust that back a little bit and not forget why we're here and the results of our efforts. So that's why.
Thank you.
Jim?
You know, Jennifer, maybe you need to educate me a little bit. How do you drive wall posts on Facebook? How are you going to get people, you know, the average visitor to do that?
We have Facebook followers, and so that is a result of when we would maybe take a picture of a day when it's snowing and someone's driving up to the lake saying, skiing is phenomenal today. Has anyone been skiing? Talk about it. And it's people to comment onto your Facebook and talk about, oh my God, I just was up at Mount Rose yesterday, best skiing I've had all year. Or
But how do you get lazy guys like me to do it?
we're talking,
That's what I want to know.
we're talking to a different demographic, Jim. All due respect.
It's all right. No, I
Do you have
deserve
any
that.
like college-age kids?
Yeah, I got one
children?
that's 24. I don't, you know, I'm just kind of wondering how do you entice them to do that? To actually, what's your strategy? Maybe that's what
People-
I'm asking for. How do you-
People love, especially in that younger demographic, they love to talk about their experiences, and they'll post on one of our.
I understand that, but what's your strategy to get them to do it? I understand the whole thing of what you're trying to get them to do, but how?
By talking about our unique features of the Reno Tahoe area and appealing to that audience that they, you have to come up with a post to start out with that attracts somebody and they want to jump on the bandwagon and talk about their experience so all their friends can see. It's a very social thing, so all their friends can see that they've participated in something.
So you build a little snowball and they make a snowman out of it.
Absolutely.
So you're going to start it.
And I
post.
think that speaks to why it's essential that our social media person really has that correct mindset. There are some hotels in reviewing and seeing everyone's posting. Sometimes you'll see a hotel do a Facebook post that says, "We have a really good football party tonight. Come on down and get some free beers." No one cares. I mean, that doesn't speak to that audience. If you say, the most rad skiing we've had all year, and I was right.
Sounds all right to me.
But
Yeah, but we don't post, we just go down there and get the free beer.
go get the beer.
yeah, or like with the River Fest, someone would take a photograph of a team that was all dressed up, looking totally obnoxious. Oh man. You see these people in the River Fest, and then other people would. So you have to have the right content. That is kind of to your question.
So the social media person that you just hired is going to do that for us?
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Paul?
Just an observation. I've been involved in marketing efforts from a business perspective for a long time, and they're always kind of nebulous. The marketing team always comes in and says, "Hey, we got to spend X amount of dollars because we're going to go ahead and do all these wonderful things." And I'm always, well, how are you going to measure it? Well, that's a little fuzzy, but trust me on this one, it's going to happen. I mean, we're and it seems to me, in my experience, you have two kinds of marketing. One is institutional marketing. One is going out and driving sales marketing, and you really need both. And my observation is that the focus has been on institutional marketing, and I must say that I am delighted to hear what Jennifer is talking about driving sales, because in my experience, a marketing department that comes in and says, "Hey, we're just going to go ahead and build your brand for you," without driving sales, I'm going to show them the door, because we need to drive sales. Jennifer understands that, and I believe that this is a good year to go ahead and keep an eye on that, to observe it, to measure it, and to determine its effectiveness so that we can continue to do what's more effective from a marketing standpoint and stop doing what's less.
Bad that I think this plan definitely does that. It does continue to brand, and we have a fairly new approach and branding approach. It's only been out, like a year maybe? And so I think that continues to be an important piece while driving those interesting. Question on the Facebook question, the Facebook thing that's going on. I think the demographics for that are changing a little bit, and they're growing. So people, who are almost 50 like me are on there too, and do somewhat respond to some of that. Thank you.
I'm on Facebook.
Yeah, I am too. Okay, there you go. Now, we don't use it, I don't use it like the younger folks do as far as living and breathing with it, but we use it frequently. So I just want to make sure we're cognizant of the fact that there's different demographics within that Facebook audience that, that may not respond to rad,
We keep it, well, and
or
I think
veering.
you've probably
Yeah.
seen ours. We
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
it kind of within a nice parameter there.
But in general, I think you guys have done a great job on bringing the community together to put together this plan, and I'm anxious to see how we do with the sales, and I'm thrilled to see some aggressive goals out there, and you guys are going after it, and I know we'll get it done this year. So thank you very much for all your help.
Any other comments, questions?
How do we measure this? So when are you guys going to give us, are you going to give us monthly updates on this so that this isn't just sitting on the shelf?
Yes, sir.
I want to see this like once a month, where are you at on each one of these things? Because I think this is great conversation that we're having right now with John and Jennifer. This is energizing to me. This is exactly what we should be doing. So can you tell us like once a month where you are on this stuff rather
Yes,
than just forgetting about this every
That's,
every
actually,
year?
we make those reports, we'll be making those reports monthly at the Marketing and Sales Committee meetings, and at the last Marketing and Sales Committee, they asked us to go ahead and discontinue the prior reporting and include the new goals and the new metrics so we can begin, actually, we'll be recording them for May and June as well. We'll continue to close out the year, but in particular, in John's case, the new metrics that we're looking at as far as conversions and citywides, we'll be
So,
reporting
Mr. Chairman,
those.
here's my suggestion, is they've got key measurements for 2011 and 2012. I think every month they ought to tell us where they are on their key measurements. So give me this stuff in a report from you two guys every month, you know, even though I won't be here. I think that'd be really great to see.
You're right, and we.
Did you send it to me?
No, we are more than happy, as we've talked about. Above all, one of the things, we have had a lot of input from different board members. We've tried to keep the processes open and transparent. We're happy to provide those reports on a monthly basis, front and center.
I just have a question. You have a goal to get 3 exhibit spaces at some large funded events. Have we gotten any yet?
Are you referring to special events?
Special events?
Yes, we have. We're right now, actually, with the RTO, we had a great meeting yesterday, and we'll be participating with the Special Events Coalition with a booth at the event. And I think we're going to be having a booth also at the Patty Sheehan event. But we will definitely, they've been very receptive, and it's good for them, and we'll be pushing all of the special events at our booth, so.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Is that it, Joe?
Yes, sir, it is. I just asked for a.
So a motion to accept the report? Got a motion and a second?
Second. Third.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item O, update and possible action or direction regarding the CEO search. And just, I'll give you a quick update on that. The search firm has been out soliciting resumes. My understanding is it's going well. They're coming, I think they're trying to come on the 2nd, Joe, is that still the plan? On the 1st or 2nd of June to meet with the search committee that they've formed of the stakeholders to kind of give them the first run. They're hoping that by the end of June, I think, is that they'll have the list narrowed down to the top 8 or so candidates for the search committee to actually start interviews, and then bring something back to us in July, the top 3 candidates, 2-3 candidates, back to us in July for us to interview and move forward. I think that's still the timeline that last I heard.
Yes, sir. And from everything, from my last discussions with Mr. Gamble, everything's progressing, pretty much according to timeline. And he's encouraged. Of course, I've never heard Mike not be encouraged, but he's encouraged on the candidates he's getting, and anxious. I think, and at this point, I think Charlotte is trying to coordinate with our CEO task force members to try to coordinate, because I believe Mr. Gamble is our chairman mentioned, would like to actually come to Reno that first June 1, 2, and meet with the task force members. Charlotte's trying to coordinate that right now.
Any questions? Okay, that's an update on that. Any future items for future board meetings?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, I'm looking at this thing and I'm thinking of Charlotte here and thinking, okay, now she has to take this out, take it apart, and is anybody interested in going away from these to iPads or computers and try and do this and save money and save time? And how much time do you spend on this, Charlotte? Hours and hours and hours. I mean, and then Lori does it for marketing, and I'm not sure who does it for finance, probably Charlotte, on and on and on. If we all had a computer in front of us, which I know some of you do in other meetings, we can, some of us could, if we wanted to, opt to do this on a computer as opposed to in a book.
Let's take a vote.
Yeah, I think we can't obviously have that discussion today. We could put it on a future agenda. We can't have the discussion. My question would be, I haven't used one of those iPads. Would it be easy to have everything on there? And
You know, just a, you know, our board of directors meetings are all on that, and it's significantly more information than this. It's very easy to, you know, if you highlight or want to make notes associated with it, I mean, it's really fairly quick and easy to do, and you can, you know, put little chapters in it, just like anything else. To me, it
And
would
that's on the
save.
iPad?
Yeah, it's on the iPad, and, you know, from my experience, it looks like it saves probably a full day of copying, you know, so you're adding a full day of productivity to Charlotte and the finance and marketing guys, so. Laptop works just as well. Yeah.
Well, I think a couple of things. For one, we appreciate your concern and the work. You know, a lot of the work is done, of course, at different levels. You know, as Lori does the marketing and sales, and Laura Tadman does the finance, and Julie Evans does the facilities. So a lot of what we're doing on this level is pretty much already done. By the time it's just a matter of putting it together. But we're happy to look at it. You know, just a couple of little thoughts. If we do go to that, is it the RSCBA? Do we now provide all 13 members a laptop or an iPad? Do we maintain?
No.
Do we do IT services?
For me, Joe, this would be an opt-in type thing. You opt in if you want to do it, opt in. Otherwise, you can still go this route. Some of us may need to go this route until we get up to speed to opt in. I mean, opt in.
I think if you were to provide the information to us ahead of time, we would have the option to do it the old-fashioned way or to do it the new-fashioned way. But it gives us the option without, you know, printing all of this material, and, you know, it's a lot of work.
So that would be my question. Instead of delivering a book, would you just deliver a disc? Is that?
Just email. And to that point, you could print it at work. If you wanted to bring a piece of it hard copy, you could print it out yourself at work.
Right.
That's what I was gonna say, is either an email with a link to a website to download it at, with it all in a PDF type of format.
So that's not gonna create additional work? Okay. You might. The store's right down the street.
You know, and to Mr. Kelly's.
So Charlotte, Charlotte, if I solicited your vote, would this be a yes or no for you?
Well, then, I guess the question would be, do we really want to put this on a future agenda item, or do we just want to let Charlotte know if you want to start trying to do it electronically for those that want to start trying? I mean, I'm willing to give it a run. I'm a little technologically challenged, but I'm sure I can make adjustments.
Again, opt in or don't opt in.
Can you spell PDF?
Okay. Any other items for future board meetings? Any board member comments? One motion.
So moved.
Got a second? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. We're adjourned. So you can make notes on there, you can do anything you need to do.
The PDF's great.